Hey guys, welcome back to r/justknow HOA. In this video, a bunch of homeowner association inspectors pulled up on me and harassed me while I was power washing the house of a poor family in need. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. I work as a landscaper and noticed that once in a while a home will end up very overgrown. I cannot help every single person in my city, but a few times a month I really try to find people that are in need of help and use my skills for them. Since I mainly work in the community, there are people that I know or at least recognize. There's an older couple that basically everybody around here knows. They took in their grandchild after his parents died, and to make things worse, the child is also chronically ill. Despite their age and how busy that keeps them, they are still active members of the community. She bakes when there are fundraisers going on, and I've seen him giving out clothing for collections. When it comes to the ability to maintain their property, it is clear that they are deeply struggling. They are too old to do it themselves, and from what I understand, they are on a fixed income and a lot goes to their grandson, which explains why a lot of what they give are things like baked goods and old clothing instead of money. The reason that their property came to my attention was because I heard the husband talking in the grocery store to a friend and I heard what was going on. So apparently his property was incorporated into the HOA and he had no notice or warnings beforehand. That already seemed like a red flag to me, but he seemed more worried that they were going to start sending him fines about the yard and how it would take him a long time to try and get it done little by little himself. I did not want to embarrass him or anything, so instead I waited until the next day and then went over to their house. I told them how I was a landscaper and wanted to help clean up their yard for no charge. At first it seemed that they wanted to say no because they felt bad, but I told them that I like to give back to the community. They agreed to let me help them. Their yard honestly was not the worst I'd ever seen. I had to cut the lawn, clean up where it meets the sidewalk and the flower beds, and I even put some grass seeds down in some spots that were a little bare. Then I cleaned up bushes so they were neat, and while doing all of that I noticed that they had a deck in their backyard way overdue to be washed. I went back home to get the power washer and was gonna start working on the deck. She stopped me first to flat out order me that it was lunchtime and I was working too hard and had to eat. Like seriously, this was the sweetest lady ever. She made me sandwiches and I sat in their home and ate. I met their grandson who needed help with pretty much everything, including eating. I cannot say for sure what kind of disability he has, and felt it was kind of rude to ask. I went outside to finish, and a little after I started, a man just walked into the backyard and started shouting at me. It scared me so badly, I almost dropped the washer, which would have been chaotic. If I knew back then what I know now though, I may have been tempted to turn the washer onto him. Well, instead though, I turned it off to see who he was and what the hell was going on. This person introduced himself as the HOA inspector and demanded to know who I was and what I was doing. With the inspector was a man that introduced himself as the HOA president. I explained that I was a landscaper doing some work. I did not mention that it was charity work because again, it can be embarrassing for people. The president guy though started losing it and pointing out things for the inspector to write down. He was claiming so many things were violations, on it hiring a landscaping company that did not have a truck or any workers. At that point, to try and ease things, I explained that I was working for free as a favor. I assumed he would be semi-reasonable and understand, but I was wrong. He went on a rant about why, in his opinion, charity work is wrong. He started telling me that all I was doing was encouraging people not to do things and expect handouts and special treatment. I told him that everybody needs to help sometimes, and he basically ordered me to stop helping not only them, but anybody within the HOA. Claiming that these people need to hire professionals instead. Refusing to believe that I was professional because no real businessman would give out the milk for free. Whatever the hell that was supposed to mean, I was more worried about the couple getting into trouble because the HOA could not do anything to me. I was not part of it. They fined the couple with excessive fines, all for basically the same thing with different wording, and then showed them a list of HOA-approved landscapers they were allowed to use. Surprise is that the list only had one vendor, a company that once I looked into I realized the HOA president himself owned. That just seemed extremely sketchy to me and I wanted to look more into it. I noticed the homes that hired his company were mainly the elderly ones that didn't seem to know any better or maybe very easy targets for him to take advantage of. Meanwhile, this couple was fearing losing their home they had lived in for 30 years and being homeless with their grandson. I promised them that I would help and not let the HOA take their house away due to the unpaid fines. I don't have too much education to be honest, but I'm smart enough to know how to research. I looked up HOA laws in our state and found that this one was in violation of several. They couldn't just force homes into the HOA out of nowhere, and the big one was that nobody on an HOA board could use their position to financially profit. That included forcing the people into hiring his company exclusively. I took that plus what happened to couple and made a post all over social media about it, as well as sending it to several local news stations. I guess an HOA being predatory on the elderly makes a good headline because a couple picked up the story. The newspaper had picked it up and now the HOA was being whispered about. People were mentioning class action lawsuits and an emergency HOA meeting was called, and I think it was the biggest attendance they ever had. People were angry, especially the elderly that had been getting scammed by them the entire time. The news was wanting to interview the president who was avoiding them like the plague. He knew nothing he said could fix anything. The rest of the board seemed to have no idea that he was doing this and were furious with him. Again, I'm not in the HOA, but the husband of the couple went and he told me everything that went on during it. The president tried to start defending himself, claiming that he was trying to create a uniform community, wanting all lawns and yards to look nice, and they wouldn't if people were hiring all sorts of different people that were not professionals. That he did not enjoy giving out fines and was giving his company name out just in case people wanted to get help so they could not deal with the fines. Not a single person in there was believing him, and people were once again getting angry and talking about suing the HOA. The rest of the board luckily worked fast and took the president out of the equation. They said the board was meeting tonight to vote, and the vote would be for any fines currently outstanding to be waived. Also, past fines would be reviewed and the money returned if the fine was found to be unjust. Additionally, they fired the inspector that the president hired because they were not really doing anything aside from being his enforcers. They promised to hire a real certified inspector that would work as a third party with the HOA instead of within it to avoid bias or issues. The last thing they planned to do was a unanimous vote to oust the president from his position. Before they could even finish the announcement of that, he got up angry and screamed that he was resigning, making sure to tell everybody that they did not deserve or appreciate the things that he did for them. Personally, I think he was trying to stay out of jail or didn't want to be president once he couldn't make a buck off of it anymore. After the meeting, things started to finally cool down. One of the board members stepped up as president and, unlike the old one, seemed sane. He sent out a public apology to not only the couple I helped, but all the elderly members of the community that were taken advantage of, announcing that the new HOA had future plans to set up help for the over 65 community. Now, because of my job, I was keeping tabs a bit on the president's company, since it was my competition at all. I noticed that I was getting new clients I did not have before, and when I asked about their old landscaper, a lot pointed to it being him and not wanting or trusting him anymore. He screwed over his own business because he got greedy about it. A month or so ago, I looked up the company to find that it no longer even exists. He went bankrupt from not having clients due to his reputation being in the dirt. I actually find it ironic that he could have kept his company, even working in the neighborhood, and never got caught, but he got greedy, and that was what made him lose everything. I still try and help as many people as I can who need it and don't have the money to afford it. Everyone deserves to have a nice home in my opinion, and you never know what people are going through. I visit the couple every month or so to give them a free cleanup. They don't have money to pay me, but always manage to at least feed me and show their appreciation. I wish more people in the world that are fortunate enough to have money or even just skills to help people that don't. And yeah guys, props to OP, this is a really good person that is helping the elderly, so he definitely deserves more support. And screw the HOA president for being such an entitled douchebag. And now let's move on to another entitled people story that is titled "Girlfriend Demanded I Pay Her Sister's Student Loans." And by the way, if you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video, because that helps me tremendously. So I, 28 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 26 female, for about 2 years. A few months ago, I got really lucky on a gambling website and won about 80k. Not life-changing money, but definitely a nice chunk of change. My girlfriend has been struggling with student loans, about $35,000, so I decided to help her out and pay them off completely. She was super grateful at first, crying and thanking me for weeks, but fast forward to last week, her sister, 24 female, is also dealing with student loans, about $42,000 worth. My girlfriend started hinting that since I helped her, I should also help her sister. I laughed it off at first, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She got increasingly pushy about it, saying things like, "You have plenty left," and "It is selfish to help me but not my sister," and "Family helps family." I explained that while I care about her family, I'm not responsible for her sister's loans. I already did something generous that most boyfriends would not do, and her sister's finances are not my responsibility. This turned into a massive fight where she called me selfish and greedy. She literally said, "What's the point of having money if you don't help people with it?" She then gave me an ultimatum, either pay her sister's loans or she would reconsider our relationship. Well, what can I say? I broke up with her on the spot. Now she is blowing up my phone, saying I overreacted and her family thinks I am an a-hole. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for her sister's loans and ending the relationship over this? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think OP should have paid for the sister's loans? I think obviously that is not an option whatsoever, and these people were so entitled that OP absolutely did the right thing in ending the relationship. And a user in the comments said, "You can reverse a student loan payment. I did when there was that chance of the 10k forgiveness and it was months after their payment. You are not the a-hole and should get your money back since she so quickly showed her true colors." Update to the story. So a couple weeks ago I posted about how I, 28 male, broke up with my girlfriend, 26 female, after she demanded that I pay off her sister's 42k in loans after already paying off her 35k loans. You all overwhelmingly said NTA and suggested I reverse the payment, and well, I did exactly that. I called the loan servicer, explained the situation, and was able to get the 35k payment reversed. My ex absolutely lost it when she found out, blowing up my phone with 50+ texts calling me every name in the book. She is telling everyone that I supposedly stole from her, and her family is threatening legal action. Yeah, good luck with that. Her sister even showed up at my apartment screaming about how I ruined their plans. Whatever that means, my friends are split, half think it was savage but justified, the others think that I should have just walked away without taking the money back. Honestly though, the fact that they immediately started planning how to spend my money on the sister confirms that I made the right call. So am I the a-hole for taking back money that was clearly part of a manipulation scheme? And then someone in the comments said, "I'm so glad to read this update. They acted entitled to your money before, and after all of this, go treat yourself, get a new phone number, and put cameras up at your place. Save all the text in case you need to go the legal route with the harassment." And yeah guys, the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story that you don't want to miss. So, I worked as a night supervisor in a small private psychiatric hospital years ago. Department directors of individual patient units were on site from 8 AM to 5 PM Monday through Friday, so there was a bit of overlap in supervisory responsibilities between 3 PM and 5 PM. The director of the high-security acute care unit did not care for me as a supervisor nor as a human being. She made it very clear that she was in charge until 5 PM and not sooner. At every chance encounter, she had some snide accusation or remark to make about the night shift, whether real, perceived, or imagined. Nothing I ever did was correct or good enough in her mind. So one day, the evening supervisor traded shifts with me so she could attend her granddaughter's school play that afternoon. On that day, I received oncoming report from the nursing director, including ongoing construction progress as the facility upgraded its appearance. About 1 hour into the shift, I had completed oncoming rounds on the second floor and had just arrived on the first floor when a fire alarm sounded. The hospital operator announced a code red on the second floor south wing opposite and 1 floor removed from the acute care unit. It was later discovered the construction workers accidentally set off the alarm. Nobody was to evacuate their area unless in imminent danger, told to do so by a supervisor or ordered by a member of the fire department. At night, everybody was in their beds, so all staff had to do was a head count and shut all doors. During daylight hours, patients were up walking around the halls in group therapy sessions or with individual counselors. I instructed the charge nurse to gather all the patients and staff into a large day room, complete the head count, and remain there until the all clear was announced on the intercom. As I started to leave, the unit director entered and demanded to know why all the patients were not lined up at the door. Stupid sleep-deprived me did not understand that this was a rhetorical question. I started to explain that this was the safest way to keep track of this population and they were in no immediate danger. She did not wait for an answer though, she started yelling for everyone to line up at the back door and leave the building, and just then 2 firefighters arrived and asked me where the exit was to the outside courtyard. I pointed down the hallway to where the director stood with 25 confused patients and staff in front of the exit. The lieutenant got about halfway to the exit, stopped and looked at me and asked, "What the hell are all these people doing blocking the fire exit? Who's in charge here?" I walked up to him, pointed at the director and said, "She is." I immediately turned to walk off the unit, listening to the lieutenant loudly telling her, "They should be in a room with the doors closed, not blocking an exit. We need to get outside and you put these people directly in our way. The alarm location is not anywhere near here. You have multiple barriers and firewalls that must be breached before you must leave," etc., etc. At the next all-management meeting, the hospital administrator announced that in the future, directors would stick to managing their individual department issues, shift supervisors were to remain in charge of global hospital operations, including managing emergency evacuation of patients during fires and other building threats. The director never spoke to me again, so that is a win-win. The next one is titled Ruined House View. So my neighbor is a family with 2 teen kids and they always were the crappiest neighbors imaginable. I had a dog that would bark like any dog. It was a beagle, so not even something that loud, and they would call me or my mother anytime the dog barked for more than a minute to do something because she was disturbing their peace and their kids. Anytime our TV volume reached over 20 or I played with friends in my yard, she would call my mother and complain to her. All of this usually happened at like 4 or 5 p.m, not early in the morning or in the evening. Meanwhile, their newborn cried all night because neither of them could be bothered to go check on it right next to my room. We lived in a bifamiliar house, like think big house divided in half by a wall, but as soon as you said something, the mother just went, "Oh, kids, haha," and they would argue and scream at all hours of the day because families, am I right? Anyway, throughout the years they never parked in front of their house, and it was a pretty large road with plenty of space, and every holiday my relatives could not park near our house because my neighbors kept parking in front of my house, leaving their front of the house free. If you parked in front of their house, they would call me to ask for my relatives to move their car, or they would call a tow truck. Other people parked in front of their house, so there was no space to park apart from a small park 10 minutes away. They also had 3 cars, so they always parked in other people's places. So recently my grandma passed and our relatives came to my house to have a sort of private funeral, and of course there was no space anywhere, so I said to my relatives to park in front of our neighbor's house since they were just gonna be there for a couple of hours. Of course, not even 5 minutes later they called me asking to move the car, and I finally was too fed up with this damn Karen of a woman and asked her why. They kept parking in front of other people's houses and left theirs free, so we were forced to park in front of theirs. Her answer: she likes to leave the front of her house free of cars, so when she looks out she can see her lawn with no disturbances like ugly cars, and if someone comes to take pictures of their beautiful house, it won't be disturbed. So please remove the cars or I will have them towed. Against my mother's wishes, I finally told her to F off, and that if she dares to call a tow truck, I will call one for her cars as well. She did not call but kept parking in front of my house, but at least she stopped calling to move our cars from her house. And the next one is titled Try to Stop Me Building One House, I Will Build 2 instead and block the neighbor's view. So I bought a house in the UK that had a large piece of land in the back garden. Almost all other houses in the street had houses built in their gardens, easily 90%, so I thought this would be a no-brainer on getting planning permission from the local city government to build one house. What I didn't anticipate was the neighborhood busybody curtain twitcher living next door to me. Let's call her Kay. Kay tried everything in her power to stop me. She organized a neighborhood residents association hate campaign to complain to local politicians to prevent the planning permission being granted to build the house. She lied her ass off and talked about how if the house was built, traffic would increase and small children would be run over. Insane lies. I spent 3 years fighting Karen and the local residents association and the politicians. A long, painful and expensive battle, but I won. Eventually I got my planning to build one house. But what Karen failed to realize was I was working with 2 other neighbors with land to the rear of their houses to ensure all 3 of us would get planning permission to build houses on our respective rear gardens. Neighbor J was to the left-hand side of busybody neighbor K, I was on the right-hand side of busybody K, and neighbor M was to the right of my property, as below: J house, K house, I house and M house. After planning permission to build houses on our respective rear gardens was granted, I bought the land to the rear of J house. I then built 2 houses, one behind J house and one behind I house. Now, every morning when Kay opens her bedroom rear window curtains and looks into her backyard, there is a middle finger poking up, house, to the left of her backyard and a middle finger house to the right of her backyard. F you, Karen, enjoy the view. And I gotta say guys, for this story I would have loved to have some kind of drawing from the OP to better understand the situation, but I think overall the story was still understandable. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/PettyRevenge. It is titled, I wasted the time of a guy who could not be bothered to signal in traffic. So, refusing to signal when changing lanes or turning is one of my pet peeves. It's painfully easy to do and makes the road a safer place. I think it's the height of ignorance and entitlement to not do it. One day, I was on my way home and wound up behind a guy who was weaving through traffic, driving pretty quickly and of course, not signaling. I noticed that he had a for sale sign in the rear window and as luck would have it, wound up behind him at a stoplight, so I took the number down. When I got home, I called him up pretending to be interested in purchasing the vehicle. I asked him the standard questions like age, mileage, why he was selling, etc. Then I got to the question of if there was anything wrong with the vehicle I should know about, and said no. Well, how about the signal lights? I did not see you using them when you were changing lanes or making turns, so I was not sure if there was an issue with them. Oh no, that's just the way I drive. Oh, okay, so they do work then. Good to know. Well, I think I have all the information I need. Thanks for your time. I'm not 100% certain if he got the hint. I think it's likely he did, and I'm 100% certain that the next time he hit the road he still did not use his signal lights, but I felt good about wasting a bit of his time and getting his hopes up on a sale. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.